Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. What a turnout. I won't keep you very long. I will put you on straight away, but I'd like to welcome to the stage to discuss this morning. We've got a workshop on the different types of legal entities in the AIFC. So if we could welcome Michael Blair, QC, the chairman of the LAC, to begin the workshop today.
Well, thank you very much indeed. You said this morning, but then I suppose it was this morning when you got off your aeroplane. I must say I'm very impressed that more chairs have had to be brought into this lecture hall. That's a good sign. Normally when I get up to speak, I suddenly discover people slipping away out of the door and more empty chairs available rather than ones that are fully occupied. This is not a humorous occasion, I'm afraid. This is rather a serious speech, and I think you have to be warned about that before I begin. There will be one more possible opportunity for a laugh, but I won't tell you where it comes. The subject is the different types of legal entity inside the AIFC. And I have to start a bit with the Constitution, though many of you know a lot more about that than I do. The legal system inside the AIFC is based on the constitutional change made to the Republic of Kazakhstan Constitution. Secondly, a constitutional statute of the Republic of 2015 as later amended, and a general legal framework pioneered by the AIFC itself with advice from the Legal Advisory Council that I have the honor to chair. A reader of the general legal framework would very quickly notice that quite a large percentage of the material, it's nearly 50% of the material, relates to the creation of different types of legal structure which are designed to facilitate commercial and financial activity in the center. A typical example would be the companies regulations, which, for instance, created an AIFC company with legal personality, requiring to be registered with the Registrar of Companies, who is an official inside AFSA, the Astana Financial Services Authority. And most of the sets of regulations that I'm going to mention have their own matching sets of rules under them, made under the regulations. So I'm trying today to set out in an orderly way the various types of legal entity that are available for people seeking to come in and participate in this magnificent new center that has been so rapidly set up in Nur Sultan. I start by saying that there are three main types of legal entity. There's the general ones, there's the specific ones, and then there are what I call pure vehicles. And I'll go through those three groups one by one. First, the general type are those that can be expected to be used for most normal purposes. A company is the typical one of those. The specific section, the second, are more specialized entities envisaged for specific purposes, such as a limited partnership, which we'll come to, and non-profit incorporated organizations. And then the pure vehicles. There are some legal structures which are not so much places for enterprise and financial skill in their own right, but are instead designed to be ways in which those skills can be developed. So in the woodworking world, these are not carpenters, they're saws and chisels. In the farming world, they are not farmers, but tractors or plows. And Marat being a hunter, it's not the huntsman, but it's the rifle that he carries on his back to shoot the wolf. So starting with the general class. As already stated, the prime example in this class is the company. The companies are formed under the company's regulations, and under Regulation 11, as you probably know, they can either be private companies or public companies. The essential differences between those two are that the public, well, why don't I ask you, do you know what the essential difference is between the public and the private company? Anyone? One is a yes? Yeah, public company is the only one that can be listed. That's quite right. Is there a capital difference as well? Yes, a public company has to have $100,000 and a private company doesn't. I think those are the two main differences. Companies need to be registered in the AIFC. They have to have a commercial license, and they have to have a base in the center, but that is also true of most of the other legal entities that I'm going to come to. Second, in the general class, is the general partnership. Formed under the general partnership regulations, this is a body formed by, quoting, a relationship which exists between two or more persons jointly conducting any business, purpose, or activity with a view to making profit. There has to be a partnership agreement, but rather less formality than in the case of a company, and under Section 25, the partnership is a legal person in its own right. In that respect, Scotland is the precedent here rather than England, where partnerships are not people at all, they are just groups of people. Generally, partnerships are formed by professional people such as lawyers or accountants, or by some business startups where the driving force is a limited number of people who get on well together and who appreciate the greater degree of informality when compared with the rules, the tighter rules relating to companies. However, if a general partnership gets into financial difficulties, there is one drawback, and you know what that drawback is. Yes?
Liability.
Unlimited liability, exactly. Even though the partnership is a legal person and can be sued in its own name, if there is a liability which the partnership cannot meet out of its own resources, the partners are individually liable for the debts of the venture and can be made to pay up to the entirety of their personal wealth to balance the books. So, for this reason, another general purpose legal entity is the limited liability partnership, the same as the other, but with the removal of that defect, formed under regulations with that name, the Limited Liability Partnership Regulations. And under Section 8.2b, the limited partners in an LLP, quoting, are not liable for any of the partnership's liabilities beyond the amounts which they have already contributed or agreed to contribute. It's for this reason in London, where I come from, that most of the law firms and accountancy practices have opted to be LLPs rather than general partnerships. We have to distinguish between an LLP, which is an entity in the general class, and a limited partnership, or LP, which is in the specific class and often in the pure vehicle class as well. Two more things about the general class before I go on to the specific one. The first is about recognition, and the second is about transfer. Would you like to hear about that, or is that too detailed?
Yes, please.
You would. Okay. Recognition. It's not necessary that any of these three general types of entity is actually incorporated or created in the AIFC. There's machinery in each of the three sets of regulations for these three types to keep their own foreign nationality by becoming recognized in the AIFC by undergoing a registration process. And by foreign, I mean an entity that belongs to any jurisdiction outside the AIFC, so that it is possible for companies and partnerships formed in Greater Kazakhstan to become recognized in the AIFC. Then a word about transfer. There's also machinery for foreign entities who wish to transfer their legal existence from the foreign jurisdiction to become bodies that belong to the AIFC in the real sense. This may be expected to happen when a foreign entity so likes being a recognized entity that it decides to reincorporate inside the AIFC. But that is not available to a general partnership. It's only the other two that can do this. And I suspect that that is because it's really quite easy to set up a partnership here, and you can let the other one dwindle and die away abroad when it's ready to go. So much for the general. The specific class. The first type to mention is the non-profit incorporated organization. The name implies, and it is so, that this type of entity is designed to be used for purposes other than commercial or financial gain. So examples will include public foundations, charitable entities, education and health services, possibly not-for-profit organizations or pro bono. Would that possibly be one of these? I don't know. Maybe one of you can inform me about that in questions. Each of these NPIOs has to have a charter of organization describing its purpose and its internal structure, and including the relevant professional and financial services known as authorized activities, which it is permitted to carry on. Second type of these specific ones is the foundation. This is similar to an NPIO, but is not constrained by the requirement to be not-for-profit. So it will be useful for the foundations that are set up in order to make profits. Particularly useful for financial planning within a family, just like the family offices that exist elsewhere. The nearest parallel is probably the Stiftung that is to be found in Switzerland, in Liechtenstein, and elsewhere in the German-speaking world. The third type of limited partnership is the third type of these specific entities is the limited partnership, the LP. This is a form of partnership usually employed where there is one active person, like a fund manager, who wishes to provide services to clients or customers who will not be active but will be passive partners who have provided the funds for the purposes of the venture. So the inactive partners, the limited partners, are not allowed to manage the partnership, which is the sole preserve of the general partner. They are formed and operate under their own set of regulations, the limited partnership regulations. They can be used in much the same way as a general partnership, that is, by being the entity which conducts the business of the enterprise, or it can be used as a vehicle by another entity. So in theory, I could have included the LP in the category I'm about to turn, which is the pure vehicles. Now, when I saw everybody here in the center running around on scooters, I thought that is an AIFC vehicle. And Yakin has one, and it's powered, and you go home with it, don't you, every night? So that's, I think you ought to issue a whole lot of AIFC scooters and call them vehicles in the financial sector. So these are designed to be products rather than producing operations themselves. The rifle when Maratz goes hunting. A typical example is the Special Purpose Company, SPC. Under rules made under Part 11 of and Section 181 of the Companies Regulations, a special company has been set up, or special type of company has been set up as a vehicle for corporate finance activity. These rules are the Special Purpose Companies rules, and the activities which such a special purpose company can conduct, which are known as exempt activities, include transactions of buying and selling, and indeed holding assets or shares, obtaining banking and capital markets financing, granting security interests instead. So it's a corporate financer's scooter. That's what it is. And there's a second scooter called the investment company. The corporate financiers have their SPCs, and the fund managers have their investment companies. These investment companies are in the nature of investment vehicles and have to be closed-ended or open-ended as the promoter decides. The only activity that they can carry on is conducting the business of a fund. They're set up under rules also made under the Companies Regulations, Part 11, but unlike the SPC case, they aren't a standalone set of rules. They're to be found in the more general companies rules at Part 6. Lastly, I should add a word or two about other vehicles. These, unlike the ones I've described, do not have legal personality and are therefore not really legal entities. I have in mind here the concept of a fund under sections 92 and 93 of the Financial Services Framework Regulations, There is an arrangement called a collective investment scheme, and it has a defined second name as a fund. There are, under those sections, rules made by AFSA on collective investment schemes of various different categories, but principally exempt funds and non-exempt funds. Thank you. It follows that there's a combination of investment companies and funds, which means that the AIFC can look forward to a widespread use of all three of the main investment vehicles available in the UK. Those are the open-ended investment company, which we call an OIC, a closed-ended equivalent, which is known in the UK as an investment trust, and then a fund, which is not actually a person in its own right. I will give you a little bit of future news here, if I may, as well. A final vehicle that may soon emerge in the AIFC is a trust. Now, these were invented 400 or 500 years ago in England, and it's thought that they could be useful here as well, largely for financial vehicle purposes, but possibly also for the purposes of family finance and family offices. These will be vehicles created by a written instrument defining the benefits which beneficiaries may have by way of interest in property held for them by a trustee who is obliged to comply with the strict rules that trustees have to have. They won't be legal persons, as I understand it, and are really another variation on the fund, but with any regulation that is required imposed on the trustee rather than on the vehicle. So that's still to come, but that could be useful in the next year or so if they appear. I should conclude. Two general observations, if you're still, by the way, nobody's left yet. Extraordinary. Well, anyway, you don't have long to wait. Two general observations arising out of what I've said. The first is that the full collection of vehicles that I have just described is of relevance to those AIFC participants and potential applicants as well, who are proposing to conduct financial services activities here in the centre. However, for those AIFC participants and applicants whose purpose is more general, not limited to finance, but running, say, a hotel or a cafe or a shop, as an AIFC participant, the full panoply that I've described can really be ignored, because the main choice is between one of the three in the general class, that is the company, the general partnership, and the LLP. Second and final observation, it seems to me clear from what I've mentioned that the AIFC has created a rich variety of legal entities for use in the emerging commercial and financial economy that is being developed here. There's a variation on the Scottish Limited Partnership to one on the Liechtenstein Stiftung, with all the normal entities and vehicles in between. And I'm confident that this variety will be to the great benefit of the development of the AIFC as an international financial centre. Thank you very much for listening so patiently. Shall I stay here and be grilled? Any questions from anyone? Yes, please. Is there a microphone? Perhaps you'll have to speak loud. Ah, no, it's coming.
I've got two questions. One is about the liability of shareholders in the private company. Is it limited to their contributions? Sorry. My name is Asil Mukhambekova. I'm from Integrities Law from Kazakhstan.
Yes. Liability of the shareholders in an AIFC company. There will be limited liability, and if they've bought an equity share in the company, the most that I believe they can lose is the amount that they contributed. But if the share was only partly paid, they may possibly have to pay the unpaid element of it. But the amount they pay for the share is the principal value. You had a second question?
Yes. What is the best structure for the holding company, which is intended just to make investments into Kazakhstan? So it will be a holding company which will invest into Kazakhstan, but it will not fall into the investment regulatory activities, etc. Just a holding of shares.
It would have to be an AIFC participant, as I understand it, but there wouldn't be much regulation relating to it because it wouldn't be carrying on financial activity, and AFSA wouldn't know much about it. All the financial work would be done by the subsidiaries below. Does that correspond to, am I right about that? I think so, yes.
It would not be financial activity. It would be like investment into Kazakh companies for further production of goods, etc.
Well, then there's very little regulation required in that sector. Once you're registered and you've got your license and all that. You don't get the tax benefit on that footing, though, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, by all means.
My name is Asil Kulishova. I'm from IX Exchange, Stan International Exchange.
You should be answering the questions.
Well, I thought I'll grill you since you asked for it. What about PLC? Because our understanding, if it's correct, is that the companies that are to be listed on the exchange to acquire a form of PLC, because that's probably the most relevant form.
Can you tell me what POC is?
PLC.
PLCs.
Because under the company's law, it's a hybrid of a public or private company, which some Kazakh companies would like to remain, and yet they are considering to go IPO, for example. So we thought perhaps PLC would be the best option, although we're not particularly sure because there's no other options apart from partnerships and LLPs, which are not considered as public.
There isn't a classification of PLC in AIFC law at the moment, I believe, but it wouldn't be very difficult to introduce one if it was wanted. At the moment, I think the public company is designed to do that job. Does that seem right?
So are they just called public companies, or what are they called? PLCs? What do you guys call them?
Just public company.
Just like joint stock exchange. In Greater Kazakhstan, we call them joint stock exchange, right? Which are allowed to list. Because LLPs like TOO cannot go listing. It's a private company.
Right.
Just public company.
Yeah.
So what is it? We just say public company or what? How do we register as what? Is PLC?
No, it's public PC or public company, I suppose.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Public company, PC.
What is developed, depending on how the market develops, the regulations also will be developed. And your question is specifically, now we call it public company.
The question is specifically is that some companies that are to go to IPO, they are LLPs or TOO. As a Kazakh in Greater Kazakhstan, the TOO, LLP, as we say, in English, right? It's a limited liability partnership, which is private. So obviously, they are not joint stocks. It will take them 6 months to become one, and obviously increase of a share capital. So they will naturally go to the AFC to register a new form, which I believe will take 2 weeks to register. So what is the appropriate form for them?
This is public company. Maybe there is something.
Anyone who can help answer the question is
Hello,
very welcome.
I'm Saule from AX legal team.
Yeah.
So I do understand what is the question is behind Asil's concern. So she's asking, when the company comes to AIX for listing, this company is under the regulation of its home jurisdiction. So for example, when it is limited liability partnership under Kazakhstan law, obviously it cannot issue the shares because it has, yes, it's just a home jurisdiction rule which will be a prevail rule for this company.
Yes.
Yes, so foreign companies, I mean for AFC, when the company is foreign, it means that when they come to AIX for listing, it will be regulated by its home jurisdiction, by its home law, by its like home corporate law. So this is the general rule we have in AIX in mind when we onboard the issuers in AIX. I think the question that ASEL is wondering what the corporate forms of legal entities here incorporated in AFC can be listed on AIX.
And that's a question slightly beyond my expertise, but I'll do my best. In order to be listed on AIX, you have to be an AIFC participant, yes? Marat, maybe you could help.
If I may take.
Yes, you know, of course, you'll get the right answer from me.
Thank you very much. This is something very unique, the questions that you are addressing. The thing is, when we started our journey within AFC jurisdiction, we started from two questions. First, which model and which way to follow? The approach that we were discussing, let's learn how to make the detailed framework. We intentionally avoided because AFC represents unique model. It open to every jurisdiction around the world. Can you imagine if you are restricting to one model? We intentionally avoided it. Now our legal framework represents very broad, very open body of law. This kind of education, we're addressing public or private company are more than welcome to register because everyone is coming from different jurisdictions. But we are learning with them. If some niche needs to be addressed, then Legal Advisory Council are more than welcome to amend it, but it depends on the commercial rationale. So we're very happy that AIX already facing this kind of questions. Let's move on together, okay? I hope.
Thank you, Marat. My final word would be that I assume that a Kazakhstan company from Greater Kazakhstan wanting to list on AIX would have to become a recognized company first. And if it was then public, it could list. So there is possibly a way ahead as we stand. Now, any more questions? Some at the back? Couldn't hear at the back. Well, I think we should say thank you all very much for coming, and I hope some of you at least have learned something. It taught me a lot to have to prepare this lecture, so I'm grateful to you all.
because he'd like to talk to you a bit about a twist on pro bono as applicable based on the early stages of development of the AIFC legal community. Thank you.
Welcome to the video on AIFC Law Pro Bono Offers. The term pro bono is short for the Latin pro bono publico, which means for the public good. The term generally refers to free services that a legal professional provides to the society. The AIFC Law Pro Bono Office is a unique platform which represents the set of traditional pro bono values with wider implications for the AIFC. The AIFC Law Pro Bono Office allows individuals and companies representatives who cannot afford a lawyer the ability to seek legal advice and consultation from volunteer lawyers free of charge. The AIFC Law Pro Bono Office helps volunteer lawyers to gain experience and confidence in the legal service provision, develop leadership, generate publicity, and build relationships with other members of the AIFC community. The AIFC Law Pro Bono Office's volunteer lawyers provide discreet, one-off legal advice and consultation on legal issues that arise within the AIFC jurisdiction. Everyone have access to the AIFC Law Pro Bono Office, both individuals and companies.
Физические лица, так и юридические лица. Pro Bono Office и его сеансы будут проходить в блоке C3A1 на стороне Экспо. Для более подробной информации, пожалуйста, перейдите на веб-сайт aifc.kz или направьте имейл на email probono@aifc.kz. Благодарим вас за то, что просмотрели данное видео.
Practical aspects, how we're going to implement this approach within AIFC jurisdiction. So first, premises, facilities. Within Law Pavilion, it's Pavilion 3.1 where the AIFC Court and Arbitration Center are located. In close proximity, in neighborhood of law offices, legal practitioner offices, we have prepared law pro bono office. Everyone who are interested, you are more than welcome to visit and see after this session to feel the air within this office. We see win-win situation among three key players. First player, legal practitioners. Anyone who are interested, you can drop an email to our probono.afc.kz address. We, starting from the August 1st, will arrange short sessions. The clientele, the people who are interested in legal advice, also will drop their emails and will establish your meeting in a due professional way. We also, as a third interested party, are willing to participate in this session. The rationale behind this is law firms, law practitioners, when they meet, they will understand clients' concerns. They will understand statistically what area of law, what kind of the issues arise or has some attention within business community, and they will develop this practice within law firm. We will benefit from this as a entity who is in charge of developing legal framework within AIFC. We're very much keen to see what kind of issues, questions, or matters are discussing. We're very much keen to assist law practitioners or business communities to get their objectives. We expect that the clientele, potential enterprises, those who are not aware about the business or opportunities within AIFC jurisdiction, they may, at no cost, usually commercial matters restrict them from addressing their questions. So this triangle for us is a triangle of success. We really don't expect that the law practitioners as a clientele will address their questions to another legal practitioners. it will be a very interesting situation. But as we see the process on an orderly manner, on a regular basis, starting from 1 hour per day in once a month, it's absolutely welcome, free for those who are willing to, and we expect that gradually the regularity of these meetings will increase because the number of AFC participants are growing steadily. And if I may turn your attention to the presentation, and we can go slide by slide how we see the process. We'll accommodate the things, we'll distribute the list, the dates, we'll receive all information on our database, and we'll offer to those who are interested face-to-face meetings. As of now, there are 2 desks for legal practitioners to meet. The way how people communicate will be under our cooperation, and hope that everybody will benefit from this. That practice may be quite unique in our area, but I strongly believe that it will be the common practice. So this is something from practical aspect from my side. The short presentation describes the details of contact person addresses and the location where this pro bono office will function. If you leave your contact details, we're ready to distribute these materials to you. Please feel free to come and join us in our initiatives. This is one of the initiatives to foster, support our relationships. We are aiming for fruitful collaboration from market participants, from legal practitioners, and we are very much keen to develop our relationships with you. If there are questions, please feel free to ask. I see lawyers from different jurisdictions now here, from China, from Uzbekistan. Please, you are now within AFC jurisdiction. Please, let's make most of your visit here. If not, let's meet after this event. We have arranged some coffee tables, some snacks. But the paramount idea is we want to deliver our message. We are striving for good. We are supporting commercial relationships. We belong and to your success. Anything that you have on your mind, please feel free to share with us for the common benefit. Thank you very much. Patricia.
So I did think the question. Sorry, Patricia Robinson. It wasn't clear to me from this description whether you envisage the pro bono facility also applying to work in the AIFC court. Do you refer specifically to a legal advice and consultation? And I think the way you're envisaging at the moment is more perhaps a one-off piece of advice or something like that. But certainly in our jurisdiction, quite a lot of pro bono work is done in the courts and tribunals representing people who can't afford representation. Is that part of your vision of how this might develop?
At this point, we don't see that pro bono office will cover court and arbitration advices. We expect that it will cover more financial market concerns, commercial relationships, and it's one of advice, of course, during that limited scope of time. I don't think that legal practitioners can address all the concerns. They can give full advice, but at least they will highlight the strategy, the vision, and later on, these legal practitioners can benefit from this client that will come as a client with commercially reasonable approach. So this is something, it's introduction. As we say in Kazakhstan, famous saying, when you met first, you are just introduced. When you met meeting second time, you became a friend, and when you met third time, you became a relative. So we're very keen to establish family kind of relationships gradually. Okay. Thank you very much. See you very soon.
No, sorry.